Welcome to another match preview from the 25-26 season here on Stones TV and the Maidstone United podcast, where we look ahead to our latest league home game as we welcome bottom side Chippenham Town. So to the last week of action then, a pair of Kent derbies, starting with the late defeat at home to Tunbridge Angels, despite a late leveller of our own, a case of the X with that Shields winner. That was followed up on Tuesday with another defeat, this time at the hands of Ebbsfleet United and former Angel Ronnie Nelson heading the winner. Your thoughts on a bad week in Kent, Nigel? Hashtag technically still number one Kent non-league side. Hashtag doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, hashtag insert whichever word you want there. Do you know what I mean? It's
pre-watershed family show, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you said there at the top of that, looking back at the previous week's action, it feels like not a lot of action, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's just frustrating, isn't it? You see these players and you see what they're capable of, and then it just feels like we've done the hard work to get back into that game against Tunbridge, and then once again, not for the first time this season, we can't see a game out. Yeah. I don't know what it comes down to. I mean, it's individual errors, maybe. I don't know. Are we not using our substitutes properly? There's no sort of you can't put your finger on it. But again, we said it on our hot take with the Tunbridge game. Maybe it was a case of we was trying to get a winner, and after that equaliser did come in, great goal by Cartbow, by the way, to open his account. And he did look good when he came on. He did make a difference there, and we are trying to win the game, and then we just leave ourselves exposed at the back. And again, I suppose it's better getting that balance right between attacking and defending, because we wasn't at our best. We wasn't on the levels that we produced throughout the month of October in that game against Tunbridge. And to get back into that game, you're right. Okay, take your medicine, take a point. It's not all 3 points that you obviously went into the game expecting. But we've done the hard work, we've got back into it, take your medicine, move on. Yeah, and it's always not the best feeling, is it, when you see the away fans celebrating like they did down here in the town end, especially you local rivals who haven't beaten you, not just at home but away, in 11 seasons, 11 years. And so you think, okay, fair play, that every dog has their day kind of thing, suck it up, move on, and then you expect a reaction at Ebbsfleet on Tuesday night, and it was nothing. We was on the commentary, we were doing the commentary, but it was just so difficult to get any continuity in the commentary, because it was very bitty. Again, it was probably for Ebbsfleet, and we said it in the commentary. They've come off of that defeat at Grimsby away in the FA Cup, so they are going to be a little bit down a little bit. Yeah. And so they did want to keep it tight, but we didn't capitalise on any stage on that, and George said it in his post-match, we've got to be better in both boxes. But for me as well, there was no sort of battle in midfield. Midfield for me is your heartbeat of your team. You win those battles, you win the war, because if you win that battle in the midfield and you get the better of that battle, one, it protects your defenders, so you're not just getting many balls in the box, and two, it creates, for the forwards going for, because we have got talented forwards. Tanker's been on good form. Gilbert, as we know, has been announced as the National League South Player of the Month. So big up to John Gilbert. But that service, and Papadopoulos, that service that they've been having in this last month just wasn't there. Tunbridge came with a plan at the Gallagher, that you can do that away from home. I get that. They can just sit there, they just block those channels, stop them balls coming through to them, and they kind of nullified us. And you saw with the equaliser against Tunbridge, give Papadopoulos the time and space on the ball, he puts that cross in, and Cartbow scores a goal. But again, Ebbsfleet would have seen that, and there was just nothing there.
That's what I was going to say. Ebbsfleet probably came with their tail between their legs after the Grimsby defeat. They're thinking, if we can set up shop here, keep it tight for as long as possible, nullify what they can do, because they're going to want a reaction as well, and it seemed to pay dividends. So a couple of game plans of varying degrees of difficulty.
But again, even the goal we conceded against Ebbsfleet, it was very unlike Maidstone from last season. Nelson, wasn't it? Nelson got the equaliser, but that's just basic. Being unmarked unmarked, just a free jump in the box, you know, you could be the best goalkeeper. Hines isn't going to get to that. You know, he didn't move kind of thing, but you know, it was whipped in corner, and again, you know what Charlie Seaman does. You know his quality on coming in from corners. You've got to be picking up the centre backs in that area. Yeah. It's just basic stuff. It's what you learn at under 13, under 14s team, and you know George can drum that into the players. But if the players are not doing it, you know, it's got to come from within, isn't it? You know. As players, you can get that sort of like, you know what it means to the fan base on after Saturday. Yeah. So have a reaction, but it just felt like there was nothing there, and that, you know, I don't like to sort of be negative, but it was just like you just want something to, you know, and we said it about the commentary as well against Tunbridge. It was flat in the crowd. It was just like, I don't know. There's just something that, you know, it's a two-way thing. You've got to sort of be in sync with each other, haven't you?
Yeah.
And you know, we was attacking that the Genco end on Saturday, which you know we don't normally do in home games.
Yeah,
because teams normally turn us, don't we? But, and I thought, okay, that's worked to our advantage. We've got this last, you know, a 90-minute equaliser. But yeah, then you go and have that sucker punch at the end, and it does. Again, it's not so much. Because you've seen what they can do. Yeah. You've seen you just want that consistency in the performance, don't you? You know, you're not going to be 8, 9, 10 out of 10s every week. It's just unrealistic to expect that. But at least show some fight, show some passion, to dig in and get something out of it. You know, and it comes back to your stat as well. It's another Goldie stat. You know, is it
April 2024? The last time we come from behind to win a game. Yeah, we had 5 draws last season out of it, and. Yeah, nothing this season. As
a fan base and as a supporter, you see that you go a goal down, you think, oh, do you know what I mean?
That's that then.
Yeah, you know, you don't want to think that. You want to think, oh, come on, you know, get a bit of a rally on here, you know, get one goal quickly, and then you can, you know, go for it. And I thought Saturday again, when we got that equaliser in the 90th minute, I thought, okay, we can get something out, snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat here, and it just didn't happen, did it? So.
Well, I knew you'd be a little bit of a Debbie Downer, so I thought I'd throw something else in quickly. We play 5 of the current bottom 8 sides between now and the end of the year. We're only 6 points from second place in the division, so things have turned one way quickly in these last couple of games, but there's potential for improvement again.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly, and that's what, again, coming off of the back of that, you think, right, okay, you know, Dorking aside, you know, we got Chippenham Saturday, and then we've got Enfield and Salisbury before the end of the month. So, yeah, I mean, as I say, that from my point of view, that's a frustrating thing, because you know what they can do, you know the potential of what this team is, and you just want them to be sort of like reaching that ceiling rather than feeling sorry for themselves and looking down. Do you know what I mean? And being down, you know, and as I said, you know, all these players have come in. We all know they've got the ability, but sometimes, you know, it's about who can roll their sleeves up on the pitch and, like, you know, take control of a game. And it just seems that, you know, George talks about, you know, what they do in training and the processes and, you know, tactics and stuff like that. They give them all the information, but once them players cross that white line, it's down to them to perform. You know, exactly. and George keeps drumming it in. You know, you've got to realise what it's like to play in a Maidstone United shirt. You know, show some pride in that badge, you know, and you know, fight for every last point, every last, you know, scrap of anything you can get out of that, and just see where it takes you, because, you know, like we've seen before in the past, get one goal, you know, look at that Dole winning season in 2022. You know, we was down in a lot of them games, you get one goal and another one quickly follows, and then that whole momentum changes and shifted, and, you know, it changes the whole context of everything, doesn't it?
Doesn't make you think with that stat though that there needs to be one game where that happens, where we do come from behind, and then you are wondering, that's really going to put the afterburners on. That's what you're hoping for.
Yeah, exactly.
And you were hoping that it would have been the Tunbridge game, to have a comeback. A game like that would have been ideal, but there's got to be one. Law of averages, 19 months on, there has to be one around the corner. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, exactly that. That's, you know, that, and that's, you know, at the end of the day, what we all come to the games for, don't we? You know, you all want to come to be excited. You all come to want to, you know, feel that passion. You want to feel what Tunbridge were feeling down there. You know, and I'm not sort of behind it, because you can't always be successful. We've had our day, we've had our FA Cup runs, and we've had all them glory years, and maybe it's just our time to just be in that sort of like rebuild, refresh stage. But as supporters, you can't but hope for that, can you? That's what we're all in football for. You know, we've all got our lives outside of football, but you come to Saturday, you want to be entertained. You want to get that feeling. You want to get that feeling that the Tunbridge fans had, and you know, it doesn't matter how much you get it. It's a drug. You want it more, don't you? So exactly. Again, that's all we want. You know, just to get that feeling. You know, that buzz back again.
Is it too much to ask? So that's the debrief done. On to the departures from Chippenham Town over the summer. Luke Spokes departed after his contract expired. He left for full-time football elsewhere. Tyreek Johnson departed for Australia after 2 seasons, whatever that accent was. Club captain Matt McClure left after 3 seasons. Rex Mannings also departed. Nat Williams left the club after 2 years to pursue an opportunity outside of sport. Harley Vozza joined Frome Town on a 1-month loan deal at the start of October. He wasn't in the squad on Tuesday night, so unsure if he'll be back this Saturday here at the Gallagher. Quevin Castro joined from York City in the summer, but has since departed after his contract was mutually terminated due to a change in his personal circumstances. Dan Ellison was recalled by Bristol Rovers after 6 weeks of his loan spell, and young defender Harry Messenger signed for Melksham on dual registration. So Nigel, there's a lot of players looking for different pastures, some of whom have been hard to replace so far.
Yeah, they have, haven't they? And, you know, Dan Ellison's the one there. I mean, he was recalled by Bristol Rovers, wasn't he, and then sold to Yeovil. So you know, he's a West Country boy, and he done really well for Aldershot last year on loan from Bristol Rovers. You know, I think he scored in the FA Trophy final at Wembley. So that's a big loss for him, isn't it? It's a funny sort of setup. You know, Chippenham are one of those teams that have been in the league. You know, they've established themselves in the league. They've always been that sort of mid-table, top half team, haven't they? But they've really struggled this year, and you know, the manager is still the same manager they've got there, but you know, to find themselves bottom of the league coming into the beginning of November is not good, is it? It's probably not a feeling that, you know, when you're on that upward curve, it's difficult to sort of then suddenly be at the bottom, and you know, you've got a different fight on your hands, haven't you? So it's like all these teams, when we look at these previews, you know, the managers are, you know, whether it means maybe getting more personnel in, but again, you know, when you're in the bottom, it's very difficult to attract that sort of quality that you need, isn't it?
So to the goalkeeping department then. Will Henry contracted for this upcoming season. He has just the 1 clean sheet in 15 league games so far, whilst Josh Sawyer was promoted from the academy in the summer. So Nigel, Will Henry in his 5th season now with the Bluebirds, that consistency word springs to mind again.
We look at it, don't we? And we've looked at these clubs like Totton and Horsham and the like that come into the league, and you know, you can keep that consistency. And someone said to me the other day, the good analogy is a loaf of bread. You know, a loaf of bread will always, you know, when it's being made and when it's being formulated, it rises, and you rise with it, don't you? Because the yeast makes the bread rise, but all loaves of bread go stale. So, you know, and that sometimes can be the case. You know, it can go the other way, can't it? You know, they've been together now, the manager and the goalie, they've been there for 5 years. So sometimes it just, you know, you don't become a bad keeper overnight, but sometimes a change is just as good as a rest, as they say, isn't it? So, it's just so difficult. You know, we've been there ourselves, haven't we, in the National League, and when you get to that bottom, it's so difficult. You know, it's kind of like the scattergun approach, isn't it? You're just trying to get bodies in the building and hope one of them sort of comes good. But you know, you've got to be exceptional to sort of change a direction of a team's fortunes. You know, and generally, if you're that good, you're not going to be going to a team that's at the bottom of the table. You're going to be going to a team that's at the top of the table. Exactly. So, you know, in some respects, it's kind of like a free hit for them coming here on Saturday, isn't it? Yeah. You know what I mean? Because no one's expecting them to get anything out of it. You know, we're not their battles. It's the teams that are in and around them that they're going to be looking at trying to get some points off and climb off, you know, before they become too far cut adrift. So, yeah, maybe that challenge will help them. But it's going to be interesting to see how they get on.
Yeah. So to their defence, and Jack Puffley contracted for 25-26. The Welshman last scored an initial equaliser in the 3-2 loss at Slough at the start of September. Tom Harrison returned to Chippenham from Truro City on a short-term deal. He played for Chippenham on loan from Bristol City during the COVID short season in 2020-2021. That loan deal from Truro City was then extended to the end of January. Defender Ethan Vaughan signed from Frome Town. Freddie Grant, Will King and Lewis Colwell all renewed for this upcoming season from last season's squad. So Nigel, nearly all of these defenders have been with the club for some time now in the recent past or present, although that familiarity, as we've already said, hasn't helped their league position.
No, that's exactly it. So you do need that, like we say, continuity is good, but you do need that fresh blood to come in and freshen it up, and keep these players on their toes. Sometimes it can be a case of like Chippenham haven't got the biggest budget in the league, so if it's a convenience thing for them to be there, obviously I don't know the players' got personal situations, but they're not a full-time side. So if they've got a job outside of football, and it's a good job, and this is just sort of like doing it for, it just becomes a bit of a repetition, doesn't it? And sometimes you just need that sort of like fresh energy in there, especially in the defensive zone, because if you make a mistake, inevitably it's going to lead to a goal. And like I said, I've only kept one clean sheet all seasons. There is sort of like a deja vu of, here we go again, isn't it? When you can see goals, and as we've said, it's so hard to get out of that mentality once you're in it, and it's you seem to be on that wheel of just going round and round and round and round and not actually going anywhere.
So to their midfield, and the youngster Lewis Royston signed a first team deal in the summer. Tom Owen Evans, or Toe to his friends, renewed for 25-26. His third and most recent goal of this current season was an opener at home to Dover Athletic. Kenise Carroll and Reece Fleet both signed after their departures from Oxford City in the summer. Piotr Petrinsky joins the academy from Forest Green Rovers. Luke Haynes and Tom Mayhew both renewed ahead of 25-26. Jake Evans did likewise for this coming season. He scored the winner at home to Worthing back in August. Kane Bradbury renewed as well. He scored an equaliser at home to Weston-super-Mare. Attacking midfielder Henry Sadie signed from Melksham Town, and he remarkably scored his most recent goal direct from a corner in their 2-2 home match against Salisbury. So Nigel, not much change from last season's midfield, coupled with some fairly decent additions to try and again bolster their ranks.
And that's what we've just said there in our review. That's where you're going to get the moving forward, isn't you, in the midfield? That they've got to find that formula, and they've got to find that fighting, attacking spirit, and they need it now more so than ever, doesn't it? Chippenham have always sort of been that sort of like dogged team, haven't they? But as I say, that's what they need to really roll their sleeves in there and get stuck in and just try and put a couple of results together, even if it's a couple of draws. Just put a couple of draws, a couple of results together, and see where it takes them. Because all these journeys, all these, you see these teams that do get out of the relegation scrap. Sometimes it starts in the most unlikely of situations, doesn't it? So, it's about just trying to get that first point on the board and say put them back to back. Even if it's a couple of draws together, it's not a defeat, or try and be more competitive in games longer than what they are. Do you know what I mean? So it'd be interesting to see if they do get any players in before Saturday. As I say, it's for them. It could be sort of a free hit. It's a game where you can sort of like, I don't know what their fixtures are coming up, but I'd imagine they've got a few teams in and around them, so they can hopefully try and get some points together.
So up front, and Alex Bray suffered a knee injury at the end of last season. He's of course yet to feature this season because of that. Young winger Bevan Cross signed a first team deal. Another winger, Cole Fleming, signed after 11 years at Cardiff City. Aaron Amadi Holloway signed for this upcoming season, recovering from injury at the time of the signing of that contract. Harry Parsons renewed for 25-26. He scored both of his league goals on opening day in the draw with Dorking. Ezio Torre, ex-Stone against the Stones, he signed after leaving Paul Town. Olaf Kosella, who was third top scorer in the Southern Premier League Premier Division South, mouthful there, with Dorchester last season. Signed for this season ahead, he scored his first goal for the Bluebirds in the defeat at Chippenham earlier this month, and won another ex-Stone, Solwanjo Smith. He signed for the Bluebirds in the summer after departing the Gallagher back in May. So Nigel, there's a number of options that include a couple of ex-Stones who'll likely be looking to do a Sean Shields upon their return.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've said it, they've got a few names you've gone through there. There's not great numbers there, is there?
No.
In goal contributions.
Yeah.
And we know that, strikers are like, they need games, they need minutes. If you can get a striker on a purple patch, those goals could be worth their weight in gold, don't they?
Yeah.
But they just haven't found that, whether that's injury issues or form related, but they just haven't found that right combination. And we know, certainly in Sol's case, we definitely know what he can contribute, and he's only one person, and you need to come together as a collective, don't you? And as I said, dig in and find that consistency, because even in all of our relegation seasons, if you're bringing loads of bodies in the box, it just never works. It never works. You never get that consistency to get good results. And sometimes it's just about, okay, we've had a defeat, but the performances were better. Stick with it. Just stick with it. Hope it comes better. Keep working on the basics and fighting for everything. But if you just keep chopping and changing it all the time, and you've got how many names did you mention there? 6, 7 names, and they've all got a couple of goals here and a couple of goals there, and it just doesn't seem to be that formula there. And you've got a lot of bodies in the building, but you can only ever play 11. I know you've got more subs these days, but again, that's difficult. If you're coming onto a game late and you're already a couple of goals down, how much impact are you going to have?
Exactly.
It's a different scenario for their manager to be working in, because normally he's in that sort of around that mid-table way, isn't he? So your voice is heard more, and the formulas that you've been used to doing and the ways that you've been used to managing and coaching have worked. So you stick with those things. Like, this is the way it's going to be. You've got to fit into the Chippenham way of playing. So as a rethink across the whole club, you've got to it's a different sort of mentality to get into. And I say, from their point of view, they've got to get into it quickly before they get too cut adrift and the season's gone.
So to the form of our visitors, who are bottom of the division, they have 3 wins so far this season, but 2 of those came in the FA Cup at Gloucester and at Walton and Hersham, before they were knocked out in a 7-goal thriller at Chelmsford last month. It could have been them hosting Braintree like they did at the weekend. That's how the cookie crumbles, as they say. In the league, they've played 8 home games, a win against Worthing and 4 draws against Dorking, Hampton and Richmond, Dover and most recently Salisbury. They've played 7 games on the road in the league, and in direct contrast to their FA Cup away form, they've lost all 7 of them. They've been ahead for a combined 28 minutes so far on their travels in the league, Nigel. The Stones' home record hasn't been the best this season, and looking at Chippenham's away league form, you have to hope their luck doesn't change come Saturday.
Yeah, of course, that's from a Stones perspective, that's what you hope, but they've proved they can do it in the Cup. So in those one-off games, they know that they've got that mentality, they know they can do it. So again, it's about taking one step at a time, not looking too far ahead, and just like, okay, this is this game, break it down into quarters and try and win the first quarter, second quarter, and that's how they've got to do it, isn't it? But from our point of view, we've got to sort of hope that they don't do that, and we've got to put our philosophy in place and try and make that the Gallagher Stadium that fortress that we know it can be.
Getting an early goal, I think, as well, going ahead like we like to do, we generally do when we win. So it could be decided very early on Saturday, I think.
I hope so, yeah.
So to the head-to-head record between the two sides, 9 games in the last decade, 5 Stones wins, 2 of those here at the Gallagher, 2 Chippenham wins, 1 of those here as well before Christmas 2023, and 2 goalless draws. The most recent of those was at the Thornbury Surfacing Stadium back in August of last year. So Nigel, Stones have a decent record against the Bluebirds, but as we saw with last weekend's visitors, Those records are there to be broken.
Yeah, of course, and that you know we've said that many a times, haven't we? But all managers are going to come out and say, you know, you don't look at the past, you can't affect the past, and it's all about the future, and that's never more the case with us at the moment, isn't it? You know, you've got to just, you know, be positive. It's a positive thinking sort of game, isn't it? Just go in there, implement your game plan on the game, and you know, get the result and get the job done. You know, it's, you know, we know the players can do it. We know that they've got the ability. We know they've got the talent in the squad to do it. So, you know, let's deliver and let's make it happen.
So if you can't make it to the game on Saturday, be sure to tune in to Darren Stiles and Alex Delval from 2:40 on Stones Live. You'll see them on the hot take and then hear them on the highlights once they go online. Normal service resumed there, folks. And Maidstone's women maintained their 100% league form last weekend with a 2-0 win at home to Betsanger. They turn their attention to the League Cup this Sunday down at Sellinge at 2 p.m. kick-off at the Sellinge Sports and Social Club. So do be sociable in sporting. Get yourselves down there to support the ladies, hoping to go at least one stage further than last season's semi-final. Details of that match, as well as other upcoming fixtures for all Stone sides, are available on the club socials and website now. Chippenham Town have been members of National League South since 2017, and this season they're doing their best to end that run, but not in the way you would have wanted. They need results, and they need them fast. Can they upset the form and league tables come Saturday? An intriguing game to look forward to this weekend, especially with the Stones looking to snap this current losing streak. Our thanks to you out there, as ever, for watching or listening to the latest preview. Like and subscribe on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast, just search for the Maidstone United podcast. See or hear you for our next preview ahead of the FA Trophy second round away game at Torquay United. And as always,
come on, you Stones!